Okay, I believe I'm live. Right now, I'm using my iPad, so I'm not 100% sure about that. It's not the same as the video I got from you, Sean. So just FYI, shoot me a text or call me or whatever if this isn't working. Other than that, I'm going to roll right into it. Let me just start by introducing myself. I know a lot of you, but my name's Dan Truex. I've been a part of AO for a little over a year, and then I've been a mentor for the last couple months. Currently, I have a full-time W-2 job, so I work 40 hours there. And then the reason that I've become a mentor is more due to Guardian Security. That's my security company. We've grown to about 3,000 hours a week we've provided of security. In Central Kentucky, we have 50 employees, give or take, and I'm the CEO for that company. I'm also in the Kentucky National Guard. I've done 23 years in the military, so there's that experience as well. And then I have a family, two beautiful daughters, 10 and 6-year-old. And so between all that, I stay very busy, and it gives me some background where I can answer some of your questions. But let me see if I can, sorry, I'm just trying to adjust some of the stuff with the screen it's showing me. Okay, whatever it is not working. I'll get the camera working on my computer next time. But one thing I would like to say is, and I want to talk a little bit about just the value of AO just before I roll right into these questions, and let you guys know I'm a single data point. So the great part about AO is you have 25 mentors, and these questions get asked across the board, and a lot of different mentors answer these same exact questions. So keep that in mind. I'm going to answer these based off my experience, but I'm one single data point. And when you, I guess, just take all the answers, put them together, and just kind of triangulate the best possible solution for you based on your circumstances and your situation. So with that said, I will roll right into the first question. And the first question is from Heather, and the question that she asked is, which is better for onboarding training, a private YouTube channel or trainual? Business description and background question. I'm in the process of redoing my onboarding and want to add training videos for all aspects of the SOP. I didn't know if a private YouTube channel would be better or something more detailed such as trainual would be better suited for a company wanting to get to our franchise level. And I included the last part because that franchise level part of it is very important. But I can't speak to trainual. I don't use trainual. I've never used trainual. I can tell you that I know people that do and that they love it across the board. Stas Sanicki uses it. He's just started. He's given it great reviews to me. I know other members of AO use it, and they've had a lot of success. I haven't heard anything bad about trainual, so I'll just say that, but that's my limit of experience with them. I can speak a little bit to YouTube videos, and maybe an aspect of that you're missing. So what we use is Google Classrooms. Google Classrooms is free. And our training program is built on modules. So we have a video portion, then we have a training outline that goes with that. That's in a PDF format. And then from there, we also have a quiz. All this you can build out in Google Classrooms with the exception of the video. The video is uploaded to YouTube and then linked in. But as far as your employees go, they would literally just go to Google Classrooms, and you would have to invite them. That's obviously not just anybody can do it, but invite them. They'd go to Google Classrooms. You would have assigned them whatever training module you wanted. We have about 19 different training modules right now, and that's scheduled to grow to about 60. But give them that training, let them go through it however you set it up. But it's much more than just a YouTube private video channel. You have all kinds of other options as far as grading and quizzes and these other things that we do that make it a pretty effective solution, at least short term. So, and this is one of those things where I've talked about, I'm a single data point. Take the other stuff you know about trainual that I just don't know and then kind of correlate there. But what I would say though is that there are some startup costs, there's some difficulties with that. For instance, I produce all of our own videos, and to do that then you're talking like the camera, the lighting, the backdrop, all of these things, the microphone, these things that I have to do that to make it look at least semi-professional, which you absolutely have to do if you want to franchise it or use this for franchising material at some point. So consider that. So there'll be those startup costs, and then you can produce them for a relatively low cost, generally speaking, your time after that. But one thing I would definitely say is this. So I can send you a demo class. I can assign you as a student and see what to one of ours if you would like. So just message me. And right now I cannot see the comments or anything. I literally just am looking at myself, talking to myself, which is about as awkward as it gets, but that's my own fault. So, but message me through Facebook Messenger, or just get me in the group on Signal, and I would definitely just add you as a student. You can go through one of our training modules. And without getting too much into training philosophy, what I would say is that ours are very short. The whole program for one module is going to take you about 10 to 15 minutes at most. You'd watch a short video, go through the training outline, and then take a short quiz. We do that for a very specific reason that may or may not work for you. The benefit there to you, though, is that you can take that training video or our program and just kind of see what the capabilities are without investing 2 hours of your time to work your way through one of the courses. And like I said, there's a lot of other features that Google Classrooms has that may be a good option for you now. Again, cost is what it is, and your ability to produce quality YouTube videos already is a question I don't know the answer to, but keep that in mind. It's a good option. It's working well for us. I'm not saying we'll stick there forever. Franchising is something that I'd like to do as well. So take a look at ours if you'd like and let me know. Anybody else that's watching this as well, you're welcome to. All right, moving into the next question. This one is from Gabs, and the question he asked was, what are some quick wins I can implement to increase our bottom line profitability, and how should I go about doing this in the long term? So he wants quick wins and long terms. And I'm going to give you 4 different things that I've kind of thought through a little bit that have helped us and that you should just at least consider. First thing I would say is that if you read the bottom portion of your question, which I may have cut off here, is that it looks like you're on track to hit 1 million in sales, but that is awesome. Congratulations. Awesome to see. So, all right. So 4 things. The first one, I'm going to give you a process to consider using. I don't know the size of your company, but you mentioned also having a full-time CPA. So you have to have a fairly big team if you're employing a full-time CPA. But there's a method you can use where you take your P&L, your profit and loss statement, and every single line of that on the expense side, you assign a person responsibility to. And what that person is responsible, they're not accountable, they're responsible for it, but they would dig into that expense, they would look at areas they could cut costs, preferably in a kind of something semi-related to what they do. It doesn't necessarily have to be, though. Look at areas they cut costs, and you'd set a timeline. You say, in 2 weeks, we're going to meet back, and everybody's going to present some cost-saving measures that they've discovered. And then you would make that a quarterly process from there. So you go in, and those people maintain kind of that responsibility for that P&L or line item on there. And that way that you have somebody that's familiar with it, they're monitoring, they're watching it. I'll refer to it over and over again, but what's measured is what gets managed. And so if you have people watching that, measuring it, tracking it, it's going to get managed a lot better. You used, and I think I said this somewhere later, or wrote notes from this later, but you use the word I a lot in your both in your question and in your follow-on part of it. But you seem to have a pretty big team, and so you cannot possibly do this all by yourself. And you have the luxury of having a team. Pull these people in and get them involved as well, and not only working in your company, but on it as well. So that's option 1. Option or things to consider too is digging in learn a little bit about what the lean principles are. And I'm not going to go into that here, but lean's a pretty common term and it's pretty widely implemented in the business world. I recommend looking into that. And the one thing that I would say to you on this, as far as take away from this conversation, is the number one question to ask is, does it provide value to my clients? And when you're looking at either adding an expense, or if you're looking at reducing expenses, which it seems to be by your question, look at the things that aren't providing value to your clients. And those are the first things you should be cutting, without a doubt. So the other thing to be aware of, I would say, is vanity purchases. People like to, companies like to look important, they like to feel important, that's human nature, and so they jump to a lot of things they don't need, whether that's overly expensive office furniture or, everybody's heard I know it's not a joke, obviously, but Amazon, where they use the doors over sawhorses as their desk. And it was just part of the culture that Jeff Bezos wanted to build. So things to consider is, you don't need the 20-foot mahogany table unless you really, really need it. And it provides value to your customers and clients again. Kind of briefly talked or mentioned this a little bit, but there's a system we use in my company where we look at 12-week planning cycles for working on the company versus just in it. And this is one of the things that I want to stress to you. Every single leader in my company, so there's 4 of us that are kind of in the senior leadership position. Even like my area director, for example, his main role is working in my company. But every quarter, every 13-week cycle, we meet, we have a planning session. We look at, okay, where do we want the company to be 12 weeks from now? What is my role in getting there? And it's about growing and building and improving the company. And so every single person is working not just in the company, but on it as well. And I really recommend getting other members of your team, especially if you have a full-time CPA. Like that guy should, I'd be questioning whether or not you're fully using him if he's just working in the company. So this might be a great project to hand off to him and give, again, timelines. I always have to give due dates and that stuff. But give him a project. Say, hey, we want to reduce expenses by 2% across the board, and go see what he can do. But he should be working on the company as well as in it. Unless there's just parts of it I don't know. But I mean, we're doing about 2.8 and projected to do between 3.25 and 3.5 this year. And I mean, we have a part-time CPA. So if you got a full-time one, man, see if you can just get more value out of him by having him help build your company. And then the fourth one and the final one I'm going to talk about is KPIs. If you don't have KPIs that give you data to drive your decisions, you need to develop and implement those. And I'm assuming you do. I mean, they're pretty standard, but I'm going to give you a couple examples, and maybe for anybody else watching this that might get value out of this that's a little behind where you are as far as size. But one of the KPIs, for instance, that would directly relate to what you're talking about as far as reducing those bottom line profitability or cost is our overtime budget. So we manage our overtime budget. It's reported as a KPI monthly by my CFO. He goes in, hey, this is the dollar we have, this is the dollars we've spent, this is the percentage we've used this year, and this is where we're at compared to previous year, and that kind of stuff. And so what that does is that allows us to, okay, A, are we spending too much on overtime? But B, it identifies bigger issues potentially, such as, do we have a staffing problem that we need to address? And so that's kind of the things that we look at as far as KPIs go, but how you can actually use those KPIs to make sure that you're, again, measuring the stuff that you want actually managed. And if you want to improve that bottom line, then manage those numbers and make sure you're tracking them in a way that gives you the information you need to make key or important decisions. That doesn't make sense, again, message me, but those 4 things, I mean, you should be able to use at least one of them, hopefully, or somebody can. All right, let me move into the next question. This one's from Robin, and Robin asked, time management. What time management system or process do you use and why? And God bless Robin. I could talk this for about 10 hours, but I won't. But it's a really good question, and it's really difficult to answer in the 5 to 10 minutes that I would spend addressing it here. So I'm going to answer your actual questions, but then I'm going to tell you some other stuff too that I think that's just as important and goes along with it. First, I use an app called Things, and I use iOS Calendar. So a calendar app and a to-do list are essentially what I use. Those two they're connected, so it's my Things on my calendar shows up in the Things app. I'm not a fan of the name necessarily. It makes it difficult to discuss it sometimes, but they're cloud-based, and so they have reminders, they have alerts built in, and I think that's absolutely necessary or critical. If you're going to use a written planner, then you need to have a kind of a system in place where you review it periodically, a minimum daily, and you have set times and you make that an actual habit. Because the written planner is great for some people, and some people absolutely love it, and if you can make it effective, fantastic. But otherwise, I personally prefer digital and cloud-based, and for these reasons. One, I can have it on multiple devices. that update in real time. So for instance, things is on my watch. I can tap my watch and eventually, sorry, I tried to add one. There you can see my to-do list just popped up for today. Obviously, you can go into other things as well, weekly or wherever, but it's far easier to enter and adjust things. Once you start making adjustments in a written planner, for me anyways, and you start getting white out or you're using a pencil and you're erasing, you have all these marks, it just doesn't work that well for me. The reminders and alerts I've already mentioned, that's another reason I like them. And then it's easier to adjust priorities for me. You have to prioritize, and that's something I'm going to cover here in a second, but just moving things up and down based on what's priority right now is critical. So here's the thing. Everybody has a different system. Everybody has their own system that they've built over time, or everybody that's using any kind of time management system has that anyways. And so I think instead of saying, hey, what system do you do, or what system do you use, I would give you basically the things that it would take to make an effective system, and then say, hey, build out your system, which works for you based on the way you prefer things and everything else. And so what I'm going to do is give you a few short examples of those, what you have to make a system effective. The first is that it has to be some kind of calendar and time-based. If you're not assigning times to do the stuff on your to-do list, all you're doing is just creating a list of things that may happen, may not, whenever. So it needs to be on a calendar, it needs to be put in there, or time blocks need to be put in there. The big part of this, the second part, is a prioritization system. What do I need to do now? What do I need to do in the future? And those are two different things. But you have to know what you need to do today, what's priority, and when you're going to do it. And if you're not planning every day, I don't know. I think that you're setting yourself up for failure across the board, or at least your success is going to be slowed way down versus the people that are planning every day, that they're executing that, and they're adjusting and tweaking their system so it's very effective and they're very efficient in it. The next thing I want to talk about is probably one of the most important parts of it as far as the prioritization system, but what and when are you going to accomplish everything you need to do in the future? This one is really hard to talk about, and again, in just a few minutes, but you have to get in the habit of putting everything in your system, whatever it is. Every single thing needs to go in it. I have for everything from the 30 things I have to do on Saturday when I'm at military to pick up coffee tonight for tomorrow. Everything needs to go in. The problem that when you don't put everything in it is that you have all these unclosed loops that are bouncing around in your head. And then so when you're trying to focus on something now that you've made a priority, you say, oh yeah, I need to do that. And then like, no, wait, I don't need to do it now. I'll come back to it. And then it's just, you keep bouncing all over the place. And this is why people get overwhelmed. And I'm going to talk about it in a later question. But when you have a ton on your plate, by putting it into a system, putting a specific time that you're going to do it, you're going to take that overwhelm, that stress away from you, because you know, oh wait, yes, I know I have to do this. It's in my system. I'm going to get a reminder when I need to start it. It closes that loop, and you don't have to worry about it. You worry about it when it's time to do it, versus it just keeps coming back to you like, oh yeah, I got to do that, but not now. I'll get to it later. It's hard to stress how important that is, and how much stress that if you're doing it, it takes off your plate. And the one thing is, though, if you're going to use a system like this, well, the key is that you actually have to use the system, and you actually have to, it builds trust of yourself. And so you stop worrying about all this stuff. I hope that makes a little bit of a sense. I've tried to condense what's really like an hour-long course into 2 minutes discussing it. So it may not have came off how I hoped it did. But again, build a system that meets your needs, that makes, that's time-based, that you're actually planning, and that gets everything out of your head. So you're not stressed out about what you have to do. There's enough time to do everything. I really believe that. And people complain all the time about not having enough time. That's not true. They're just not using their time how they should, or they're not using it effectively. So let me give you a couple of basic productivity tips since you mentioned productivity. One is time awareness. One thing that I've noticed, especially I've coached a couple people as far in the military, and one of the things I have them do is actually track their time for a week in 15-minute intervals. So I'm not saying plan, I'm saying track. So, every hour you stop, you write down, what did I do this 15 minutes, what did I do this 15 minutes, what did I do this 15 minutes. etc. And some people find they can't even, like, oh, I don't even remember what I did that 15 minutes. The truth is that most people have no idea where most of their time goes. And if you don't know where your time's going, you can't possibly manage it. Again, I've already said it like 6 times, but what gets measured gets managed. So be aware of where your time goes. And if you're interested, message me. I'll send you the PDF form I have where you can track your own time. But it's an interesting experiment to do for a week. It's not sustainable long term, but it gives you an idea of how you're wasting time. Like, I just spent 15 minutes blown on scrolling Facebook, and then I went to Instagram, and then I jumped to the internet. And, you know, everybody knows how the internet goes. You know, you start reading one news article, and 6 news articles later, you wake up, and it's like, oh, what just happened? So I would say that if you don't know where your time is going, I would try that experiment. Another one is when people create to-do lists, one of the biggest mistakes they make is they'll put something like, for instance, write thank you notes. The problem with something like that, something so simple is that if you don't actually have, for instance, if that's not actually the first step, you're going to procrastinate because you for whatever reason, psychologically, you push it off. But say, for instance, your to-do list is to write thank you notes. You don't have any thank you notes, so what you really need to do is go to the store, buy stamps and cards and everything else, and then write thank you notes. And so people just do this. They put basically an entire project in, and they put like the last part of it, and it just doesn't work. People push it off because it just doesn't, like, I'll just go down to something else because, I don't know, there's some kind of psychological thing, but I watch people do it all the time. Another method is condense the time you give yourself. People give themselves way too much time. I don't do year goals anymore. I do the 12-week ones, which again, I mentioned earlier, both with myself, Night Shift Nutrition and Guardian Security. I don't, like, if you give yourself a year goal, you're going to procrastinate the last 6 months, last quarter, and then you're going to knock it out. Or you're going to start strong, and then like, I got plenty of time. Cut down the time you need. If your timeline doesn't force you to start pretty much now, you've given yourself too much time. And that's a real way to increase your productivity as far as, and then the final thing I've already mentioned, get it out of your head. But people keep all this stuff and they try to keep it all in their head and they try to remember everything, and it just sets you up for failure. It stresses you out. It causes all kinds of problems. So just, those are some things, some resources for you. Getting Things Done by David Allen is a great book. It's a bit out of date, but it still has great systems in place, a lot of which I've stolen from here or that I use in mine. It's not a complete ripoff, but it's a partial ripoff for sure. Deep Work or Digital Minimalism by Cal Newport, if I remember the author right. And then the Things app, which I use, Your Calendar. It is a paid app, just FYI, but for me, it's been invaluable. I have some friends that tell me that the current to-do list on iOS is just as good. I don't know, but take a look at those. But again, it needs to be able to prioritize it. You need to get everything out of your head. So something to consider. All right, moving on to the next question. This one is from Nancy. Nancy, this one gets me fired up. I gotta be honest. Should I keep my 6-month emergency fund completely, or should I use some of it to invest in starting my business? This question has been, I know that a lot of other mentors have possibly answered this question. I've seen it on at least the email list. So I don't know what answers you got, but I'm going to give you mine. My answer is yes, absolutely. I can give you a lot of reasons for that. You know, it's like cash is a bad investment, whatever. But that's not the answer I'm going to give you right now. In this one, I want to talk a little bit about mindset. And I just want to ask you, what's the worst thing that could happen if you start your business and you use some of your emergency fund? What's the worst thing that could happen? I take a look at my life, and man, I love my life. I have an awesome life. I'm in a great position financially, but I'm going to tell you this. If I lost every single penny that I have today, if I lost every single source of income that I have, I'm going to do whatever it takes to be successful again. I'm going to go work at McDonald's or Arby's or whatever fast food restaurant for 60 or 80 or 100 hours a week, and then spend another 20 hours finding something else that makes my life better and improves me and moves me up. Man, there is so much opportunity out there right now, and if you're not taking that opportunity, and if you're not seizing it, I mean, you're wasting your own time. But build that mindset, and you'll never be poor, you'll never be unsuccessful, because you already know. We talk about the slogan for AO is most won't, I will, and I absolutely will. I just can't think of it. It doesn't matter. And, I've told my wife that before. I will literally, whatever it takes. If our house burns down, both of our jobs fire us, Guardian says, we're buying you out and not giving you any money somehow, and everything else happens, I will still come out ahead in the long run. Absolutely. And it's not because I'm special. I'm not any different than anybody else, but it's solely because of mindset. I'm telling you, I literally will do anything it takes. Do not get in the way of me and success. Don't do it. Period. Because I'm telling you, I will do whatever it takes. And once you have that mindset, that's going to reduce a lot of your anxiety about the safety net that you built of 6-month expenses. Listen, you said you have no debt. You said you have none. It doesn't sound like, there's no reason. I would absolutely encourage you to cultivate that mindset. And man, go get it. Go do it. I don't know if you've ever watched the show Undercover Billionaire, the first season with Glenn Stearns, which is almost the only TV I've watched in the last 5 years. But Glenn Stearns goes, they give him a $100 bill, and he takes that $100 bill, and I don't remember exactly the process. He went and scrapped some tires and made a little bit of money. He took that money, he bought a car. He took the car, he flipped the car, then he moved to a house flip, and then he started a business, and he did that within 90 days. And now I disagree with the valuation they gave his business, but I'm going to tell you this. Glenn Stearns, it doesn't matter what happens to Glenn Stearns. He will never be poor, ever. That's one of the big takeaways I took from that, because he has a skill set and a mindset that's not going to allow him to be. He'll just go make it happen. When he flipped the very first item, the tires, he made like $1,000. Like, that guy can sell used tires for $1,000. That's pretty impressive. He didn't say, I'm going to keep selling tires. He said, now I'm going to take this money I have from selling tires and I'm going to buy a car. And from the car, I'm going to flip a house. The reason he kept his focus on his purpose and what his goal was at the end of it. He didn't just say, well, this one little thing worked for me at $1,000, so I'm going to keep doing that. That's what so many people get stuck in. They don't have a purpose. They don't have focus. And so they keep focused on doing the exact same thing they're doing. So don't do that. Take part of it. I'm not saying burn your money, but if you have a good business concept, go do it. But that mindset you have taken into it is important. Build that, cultivate it. So anyways, like I said, just get me fired up on that one. All right, moving into the next question. This one is from Jake. And Jake asked how to overcome feeling overwhelmed. And then his business description, background and question. He does real estate, flips, Airbnb, rentals. He's a full-time student, and he manages his business. I don't know if that is the real estate, flips, Airbnbs, or if that's a whole unrelated other business. And then he also does his personal investments. It's very stressful, and sometimes I feel like I'm not doing enough. Jake, that's awesome. For starters, man, you're going out and trying to get it done. I don't know that what other answers you've received on this, but I want you to go back and watch the answer that I gave Robin, and maybe I should go a little bit more into that, but you have all these different things, so we're very similar in that regard. I have a ton of different things. The military doesn't directly relate to Guardian, doesn't directly relate to my W-2 job, doesn't relate to night shift nutrition, any of these other things I'm doing. And so my time management and productivity system and getting it out of my head, so I'm not ever worried about it. I don't worry about what I'm doing tomorrow, because I know everything I have to do tomorrow is going to instantly show up on my to-do list tomorrow. I'm willing to bet that you either don't have a time management system of some sort, or if you do, it's not effective, or you're not using it right. Because I'm telling you, it's like I have all these things going on. I have over 30 things, for instance, I have to do Saturday because I scrolled through. We had a meeting last night. I'm not worried about any of that because it doesn't matter. It's not priority right now. It's already set aside. It's listed out. I'll go Saturday. I'm going to kill it. I'm going to knock it out. But I'm willing to bet you're not tracking that stuff and you're not putting it into a system that allows you to worry about what you got to worry about right now. What do I need to focus on right now? Because if you have that system, you have it laid out, it's going to take all that stress away. Now that's part one of my answer. And Sean and I have briefly talked about potentially at some point me giving a time management and discipline class or overview for one of the AO functions, but he may completely write that off after seeing me here. I don't know. But that is something that I have become very good at, and I'm working on helping others do the same as well, and how to relate that to them. But I'm going to tell you, get it out of your head. If you're trying to track all of those items you have right there, which is a ton in your head, you're going to be overwhelmed. You're going to be stressed out all the time. And that's not going to work if you're not consistent. If you get it out of your head sometimes and other times you don't, you'll never trust yourself. You'll never did I put that in? Did I not? You have to build that habit of doing it every single time. The second one that I'm going to mention is, so I've talked about getting stuff out of your head. Now I want to talk about getting out of your own head. And those sound very similar, but there's a lot of differences there. Taking care of yourself, both physically, mentally, and stuff, that is extremely important. I place a big priority on that. The things I do when I get up as part of a morning routine work for me very well. Part of that's meditation, cold showers. I do these things because for specifically for mental and physical health, I have to be at 100%, or I have to function at a high level for much longer than a lot of people, than your average person working 40 hours a week. And I cannot do that if I am not 100%. If I am functioning at 50%, I'm tired, I'm drained, I can't do it. So I make sure I exercise the way I eat. I work on sleep. It's my weak area right now, but I don't have energy problems. So I would say this: you've got to take care of yourself. And if you're younger, which by being a student, I'm kind of guessing you are, then the odds are that you probably tend to let that go by the wayside. And I find older people do the same thing though. What happens is that people write that stuff off the instant they get stressed out. So then they stop, like, oh, I'm stressed out, I gotta do all this stuff. And so they stop taking care of themselves. They stop eating right. They just eat whatever. And I don't have time for exercise. I don't have time for meditation. And the reality is that's one of the worst things you can do, because it's a vicious cycle. So then you start performing worse. And because you're performing worse, you're more stressed out. And it just goes over and over and over again. So, Jake, take care of yourself, man. Be healthy, eat healthy, work out, exercise. And then there's one other side note I kind of probably add all of this stuff, is that you've got a lot going on. I have no idea what your level of success is, but it sounds like you're swinging for the fences, and hopefully you're wildly successful. But the more successful you get, the more you're going to have to realize you need to say no to a lot of stuff, especially if it's not aligned with your purpose, your goals, stuff like that. Because you're going to have all kinds of people that want part of your time. And I'll give you a couple examples here. So I had some random guy message me on Facebook. We'd been in the military together, and he wanted to meet to get to know me, but he works for Northwestern Financial Mutual Insurance or whatever. That's just a hard no. Like, there's nothing that's one, it's insulting for various reasons, but no, it's not aligned with my purpose. I don't need it. It has nothing to do. I'm not going to spend my time just to, I guess, make somebody else happy in that regard, because it's not aligned with anything I'm looking for. The flip side of that is when being a mentor in this group, to me, that's a huge honor, but it's also directly aligned with my purpose. My purpose is to be the best version of myself possible every single day, and then work to help others do the same exact thing. Sounds simple, but it requires constant improvement. And that means that being part of this mentor session, even though I got 800 other things on my to-do list still, is important to me, and it matters. And so it's something that I definitely would say yes to. When Sean said, hey, I'm going to promote you to mentor, I was all about it. That's what I'm here for. That's what I want to do. So keep that in mind, though. You're going to have to learn to say no to things if you don't already, and just, it's okay to say no. Some people have a hard time saying no, and so you get pulled in 800 different directions, and especially when you get successful, then people want your time. So keep that in mind. All right, next question is from Zach. How do you start a training program for employees? What are the bare bones structures needed for a successful program? Zach, great to see you hiring people. Great to see how that's going. It's awesome, man. It's great to be in a forum with you. I'm going to learn just as much as anything you'll ever learn from me. But a couple thoughts on your question. I'm going to make an assumption, hopefully it's a fair assumption, that most of your training based on your business is going to be primarily OJT, on the job training. They're going to have to be with somebody out there actually doing it to learn it. It's not going to be sit in the classroom and watch some videos and now I'm going to go out and install alarms. and I can't see comments. Feel free to message me or text me if you're actually watching this, and then and tell me I'm completely wrong. But I have two basic thoughts here. So the way I would do yours is, I take this actually from the police department side, how we train new officers outside of the academy, so the OJT part of it. I call it checklist-based training system, but what this would do is you just kind of make a checklist of specific things they need to be taught to function on their own, not how to do it and anything else. You're creating this long list from that every single thing they have to know to function on their own. You'd have the item, you'd have a line next to it where they could, the person training could initial and date, presumably you or I guess somebody on your staff. But that way you know every single thing. That would also probably allow you to interview better. Like, hey, you know exactly what you need to hire and what even help answer and guide the questions you're asking. Then the next part of that process would be, okay, going back through that checklist and then identifying every single thing that you need to create a video training module for or some kind of reference for that allows you, allows them when they're on the job site to go back and refer to something. I know you have some highly technical stuff, and so this isn't just like, hey, I get to do it one time and I'm done. But just over time, build out your library there that's based on this checklist that says exactly every single thing they have to know how to do their job. And you'll have to tweak that checklist over time, but that's just, again, get it down, then get it right. So develop this checklist and then, oh, hey, we forgot this. And then you add it to the checklist. And the next person that comes through, now it's on this checklist. And you say, what on this checklist do I need to make sure that they have a reference for, available for on the job? And you create that. You talk about it being a 6-month training process. So obviously this is going to be a it's going to take you a lot of time to put this together, but you need to invest the time to do this because at some point you're going to need the next guy you hire to train the guy after him, and you're going to need to be out of that process altogether, or you'll just always be working in your business because you'll be the trainer. So develop that process, build out the references, and then get other people that can do it, that are competent as you and able to do that, implement that system. Like I said, it should help in the interview process as well because you can just gauge their technical ability right there by going through that checklist. May not be able to get to all of it based on the length it's probably going to have to be, but anyways. All right, next question. This one is from Morgan. Morgan, hope you're doing well. The question she asked is, what strategies do you use to build your network? And first off, I have no idea why Sean included me on this question, but I'm an introvert. I absolutely hate networking, but that doesn't mean that I don't realize the value of it either. Networking is just critical, and if you can't do it, especially in your line of work, it's going to be very, very difficult. But I'm going to give you my perspective and what I do to network, and then again, I would go back to every other answer other mentors have given, some probably a lot more friendlier than I am, a lot more extroverted, and I would just kind of put all those together. And if I'm going to give you a couple ideas or a couple things I do, and if that works for you, that's awesome. But if not, maybe there's an introvert here watching, or at some point in the future that says, yeah, okay, I can do that, or I can use that. There's a quote, and I don't remember who said it, but it was like, modern society is much like the Butte River. It's a mile wide and an inch deep. And to me, that's what most networking functions are today. They're just these really broad kind of just, you meet a bunch of people and then everybody runs off. And I would never get anything out of that. I don't build relationships like that. I'm much more of a kind of build deep relationships over time. I much prefer fewer friends, but much deeper relationships where, they'll absolutely support me. And so I focus more on the individual and over long periods of time. The networking thing just doesn't work for me as far as these kind of contrived events where people go specifically to network. Because essentially what you're doing is you're just walking through these like, how can this person benefit me? How can this person benefit me? And I really don't want to do that personally. I want to say, hey, how can I benefit them? And maybe in turn, they can benefit me, but it's a two-way street. I just don't get those at networking. I just see a bunch of people that want something from me, and maybe that's on me. But I also have a problem just going like, oh, how can I get something out of this person? I don't think like that. So, that's one thing. So I focus on individuals, and then those individuals, in the long run, I'll do anything for them, and they'll do anything for me. And you get much better recommendations, much better reviews, much better referrals that way. Like referrals, for instance, I joined a referral group once, and man, it was so disingenuous to me. I joined it, and it's a bunch of people, and basically the deal is that, well, I'll recommend you to people, and you recommend me to people. Well, I don't know you. How do I know you'll do a good job? And so one of the women in the group was a financial advisor, and she recommended. So I was like, okay, I'm looking for a financial advisor. Maybe we can talk. So we met, and she comes up with this plan, which is what all financial advisors do. I'm probably using the same software, and she said, okay. And her plan for me though was to invest $5,000 a month in insurance, and it was, again, that just kind of pissed me off, for the simple fact is that, one, if I have $60,000 a year to invest with you, and you think I'm stupid enough to put it in insurance, like that's just like, and so I will never send a person to you, and I can't be part of this group if it's just like you're literally looking at selling me the object that makes you the most money. You're not looking at what's best for my finances, you're looking at what's best for you. And so again, it goes back to a lot of these networking things for me are just, they don't work. They're disingenuous. They're not. The people are just looking at what they can get out for themselves. And so, I don't know. My advice is focus on the individual, and then build a deep relationship over time. Not the fastest method, but it's worked for me so far. The second thing that I do is, and this is, I don't know. Hopefully you're doing it already. Is through reputation. If you do amazing work and you go in and kill it for people, they'll refer you automatically. Some of I can name several of our clients that have done this for us, and they send us other people. And it's, we should have a sales team, or at least a salesperson. We don't right now. And that's a conversation for me and my board, but it's why we still have $500,000 in our pipeline, because we have these people referring us, and hey, would you guys be interested in this? And hey, this person, I heard they're looking for security. We were talking or whatever. The people that you want to be your clients, or your current clients, are probably already talking. So kill it for them, kill it for your clients, and if you're genuinely providing value for your clients, they're going to refer you to other people and other companies in their same position. So that's the two way. Those aren't conventional ways. Those aren't what, I'm sure you've heard a lot of other answers. Maybe they're pieces though that you can add to everything else you've been told. Say yes, those maybe provide value. Don't know. Hopefully that helps you a little. So. Okay, next question up is Joe. Joe the Home Pro. How are you, Joe? So first off, Joe, for you, I've been seeing you making some hires. That's awesome. I hope those are working out. That may have already answered your question, but I do have a couple points to make. So here's Joe's question. What do you suggest as far as paying independent contractors who I contract to help me facilitate providing my services to my customers? Yeah, I would pay whatever it takes. And here's why, Joe. And the other part of it, you say you're turning away 5 to 8 inspections per week. Man, like at this point, like to me, that would be devastating in our business. If I had people calling me and asking me like, hey, can you provide security for this event? And I'm like, nope, don't have the people. No matter what the size of the event is, 130 for Breeders' Cup, or if it's one person for some construction site. They'll stop calling me. They'll call somebody that can meet their time every time. Because when I make a call, and this is human nature, when you make a call, you just want your problem solved. I don't want to have to call 6 people to find a home inspection. I want to call one guy that I can call every single time, and I know he's going to have it. So my point here, I guess, for you, Joe, is and you may have already done this. You may already have people, because I've seen you making some hires, and you're absolutely killing it out there. But to get to that next level, you can't be turning them down. I mean, I can't, to me, that would be devastating to our business. I don't turn down anything ever, as far as new business unless it's some kind of moral or ethical issue. So, yeah, because you're just not going to get called. Like, why would I keep calling this guy who can't solve my problem? I'm going to call somebody that always does. And even if they're not half as good as you, Joe, I have a feeling that you do a really, really good job. And because of that, you're leery of taking on other people who won't quite meet your standard. And that's a concern. It's definitely a valid concern. Nobody cares like the owner. But not as bad as, listen, I'd rather take a 10% hit on quality than I would turn it down at 5 to 8 a week. Like, you're going to lose business over time, even as great as a networker as you are. Morgan, you should ask Joe how to network. Don't ask me. But anyways, the second point there is that you do have to keep in mind when I say pay whatever it takes is that you are setting expectations for the future there. So if you pay somebody this now, they're going to expect that in the future. Of course, if you're the sole go-to for all these solopreneurs that are doing it, and at some point you are going to be able to semi-dictate your price and you can adjust it over time, but bad surprises are never good, which sounds obvious, but you say, hey, I'm paying you X dollars this time, and then it's $100 less next time. It's going to cause you some problems. So keep that in mind. Not necessarily easiest way to decide, but just don't turn them down. You don't absolutely have to. And that's going to require you getting out of the business and working on it and being you and making those connections and getting those 5 to 8 extra calls a week because they love Joe. Nobody calls me 5 to 8 times a week because they love me, Joe. All right. Next question. I'm going to say the name Sanal. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to butcher it. Certainly feel free to message me and tell me how to say it, and I'll absolutely get it right. But the question he asked was, if you have some extra cash in business, what would be your next move to grow the business? And then business description and background question. I'm in title searching business. We provide B2B, business to business. Our clients are title insurance companies. Well, I'd say whatever the business needs to grow. Very simplistic, but one, I guess a question I'd have there too, is this recurring revenue or is it just one-time cash you have? And I have a couple recommendations that you could look at, and both revolve around sales. And again, haven't seen any other answers that you might have got for this, but I'm going to bet most of them, at least at some point, touched on sales. If you aren't increasing your revenue, you're not growing. And generally that requires selling something. So getting somebody to get on the phone for you. But even before that, what I would say is this. I would look at hiring a sales coach or mentor. I hired Tom Black. Tom Black has been great for me. Without a doubt, I can contribute $500K in revenue to Tom Black. And that's reoccurring revenue for my business. Tom knows what he's doing. And I don't know what I'm doing, so I go to somebody that does. And so if you're asking this question, it tells me you should probably get a sales coach and or mentor and start there. Have them build out or help you build out a system and a process you use to make sales. And then the second thing that I would look at, and based on your business and what I'm guessing you probably really need, is probably some outbound sales calling. So someone to just find the potential clients for you, and then you take those meetings, make them, and close the deal. But that would be the second person I would look at hiring. And again, if you have a good sales coach and mentor, they can absolutely walk you through every part of that, the hiring process, how to get them trained, all that stuff. I know for a fact Tom does it. So I don't know how to recommend Tom Black high enough, but you have to if you don't know how to do it, then get somebody that does know how to do it to teach you. There's no shame in that. You don't have to know everything. You don't have to do everything. But like I said, Tom Black's brought me $500,000 in revenue. Not even close to, not being worth it for what I paid him. Not even close. So consider that. People have this, for whatever reason, they don't want to pay for a mentor. They don't want to pay for a coach or somebody to do training. And then they just bumble through life and they hit their head on the wall a lot. If you want to remove that wall, that's what, again, AO is for. You have 25 mentors, one of which is Tom. But in this specific case, and you have extra cash, I'm going to go and get the stuff I need directly from the person and get one-on-one time with them versus a question. So if it was my sole decision, that's what I'm doing. I'm going to hire somebody to teach me, and then I'm going to get somebody to do it. And in that order. If I don't have the funds to do both, I'm going to hire somebody to teach me how to do it. And then I'm going to execute. So, and I'm kind of doing that now with the stuff Tom's taught me. But one resource I'd recommend is Tom Black's book, Boxcar Millionaire. It's by Tom Black. Kind of hard to find now. I know Tom has copies, but if you actually get online, I've had some difficulties finding it. I actually found a used copy, couldn't find a new one. You still can find them, but it's worth reading. He actually lays everything out in there. You just have to go do it, which is, again, what most people don't do. Most won't, I will, right? So, all right, last question. So this one is from Cheston. Cheston asked, how can I get better at finding, hiring, engaging resources, people to help me carry my vision forward so I can finally get out of the business of doing everything for the business? Okay, so several thoughts in here. You're asking a lot of questions in that one sentence. How do you get better at finding and hiring? We'll start there. Get it down and get it right. You have to have a written process. I say these, I mean, I've had a lot of the same parts of answers for a lot of these questions, but if you don't have a hiring process that starts you from point A and walks you through point Z, then you won't be able to improve it. So again, I'll just give an example for my company. We have a written hiring process that's every single step of our hiring process. How we do it, the resources we use, like where we go get background checks, how we conduct a social media screen, all these things that we go through. And then what we do periodically, and not enough, but periodically at least, it is scheduled, is we review that process. And we say, okay, where can we tweak it? But you have to write that process out. You have to force yourself to actually use it. And then you have to make those tweaks and improve it. And over time, you're going to have this awesome process that answers your question. Like, hey, now somebody else can use this because it's written out step by step. I don't have to be the one working on the business. I have this written process that's just awesome. And go from there. But some people just don't want to write the process down. They want, again, hold everything in their head and then wonder why they can't train another person to do it in 3 days. You don't have a system, you don't have a process. And those are so, so important. Another question I would ask you is when you're looking at doing this stuff, are there things that you can outsource? Are there anything in your business? I know you're doing a software as a service platform is your kind of your focus for here, but you also have a digital marketing agency. You don't seem to like your digital marketing agency, or don't really want to seem to be involved with that, but does seem to be the only business you have bringing in revenue. My question to me is, then what do you hate about that, and what of that can you outsource and get that off your plate? That does two things for you. It allows you to work on the stuff you want to work on, and it removes a pain point from your life. But again, outsourcing stuff, especially if you can do it without actually hiring an employee and get the same level of quality, is great, because then you don't have to train anybody, you don't have to deal with the payroll side of things, all that. So are there tasks you can outsource? And I mean, for instance, Night Shift Nutrition, I'm trying to outsource everything. So I didn't mention that, but it's another company I've got, but I have a social media. I hate dealing with social media. I've got a great social media coordinator. She's making like 5 posts a day that are decent quality, and it's slowly starting to scale a little bit. We're getting a few likes here and there now versus, and the writing for lack of a better term, the blog we have, that it's all interrelated. I don't do that. I have a writer that does that. I'm outsourcing all that stuff because I don't want to do that and I don't have the time to do that, but it's going to be necessary for that project to be successful. So what can you outsource? Especially the stuff you hate. And then you talked a little bit about carrying my vision forward. It's great that you have a vision. I hope you have a vision based on that statement. I would actually use it written down. Do you have a written vision? Because it doesn't matter if you have a vision if nobody else knows it. And you need to be written, and every employee needs to have it. And so this is Guardian Security's vision. It is a booklet that I have created. Every employee gets one. It has everything from our standards of excellence. But it's our vision for 3 years, or what's left of 3 years, July 12th, 2023. This is exactly what we are going to look like on that date, July 12th, 2023. And every employee gets it. And every employee gets a conversation about it with me or another senior leader. And we talk about, hey, this is where we're going to be. And it's not only telling them your vision, because nobody cares about your vision, if I'm going to be honest with you. What they do care about is how your vision benefits them. So if you can't tell them that they don't care about your vision, they may tell you they do, you're the boss, but written copy of your vision, every employee knows it, so they can actually help you move towards it, working on the business and not just in it. Not just you, that's not just you, that's for everybody. But and then the second part of that is that it has to benefit them in some way, or they at least have to feel like it benefits them in some way. Because if there's zero, they're not going to care. So that's part of the process too, is selling your vision to them and how it benefits them. Because if you can't do that, then your vision is a great, beautiful idea in your head that's never going to happen. So learn how to sell that to them. And I'm trying to swipe left again to see the conversations reactions, but I can't. So it's not allowing me. I don't know if there's any other questions. Okay, don't have any text messages, so Sean didn't hate this enough to just go ahead and shut it down altogether. But I hope those answers helped you guys some. Feel free to message me. You can do it on Facebook Messenger. Friend me first, I think, is the best way to do that. But if you're a member of AO and you friend me, I'll accept it. And then, if I can clarify some of my responses or provide any resources to you or help you in any way, shape, or form, absolutely happy to do it for this group. So anyways, I appreciate everybody's time today. I appreciate everybody that is watching or is going to watch this. Thank you. And again, if I can do anything at all for you, just let me know. Thanks.